Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Marla Goldberg, your host today on Guided Spirit Conversations podcast, and I'm so happy you're here. So, I have another exciting show, and we have an encore guest, one of my absolute faves, ZofiaRennea Morales. And Zofia is an award-winning global strategist and former biophysicist. There's no brains. There's nothing in there, is there? She's just not an overachiever. Zofia, I just love her. Had it all. A high-powered career, loving husband, gorgeous properties, adventure, good friends. You name it, she had it. She was living the dream until her fast-paced life screeched to a halt and left her in pieces, brought into the edge of death by an undiagnosed chronic Lyme disease issue, and had bankrupt her in every area of her life. Desperate for a miracle, Zofia cried her most heartfelt prayer, "I will do anything to get better." This single prayer triggered an unanticipated Kundalini awakening, a spiritual activation which unlocked Zofia's gifts as an intuitive, healer, and mystic, changing her life completely. ZofiaRennea Morales is now the host of talk radio program Sovereign Self, Mondays at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, sovereignself.live, and the creator of Conscious Enlightenment Process, a transformation alchemist and teacher guiding clients to find the gold within their most painful life transitions, helping people from all backgrounds notice how life wraps the best gifts in the shittiest wrapping paper. I love you so much, Zofia. The Zofia scientific and corporate background appeals clients who appreciate the way she integrates a pragmatic woo and real life into her work. Seasoned with love and laughter, Zofia guides her clients through their own spiritual crises and onto their paths of passion and purpose with warmth, joy, tenderness, and play. Hello, Zofia. Welcome back.
Hello, Marla. I'm so happy to be back with you. It's been far too long since we got together.
I don't even know the last time we got together. What has been going on with you in all this time?
Oh, like everything. COVID hit. My father could no longer live on his own, so we brought him in, and then we could no longer provide for his needs. It's been over 2 years since all of this has gone on. And so at the beginning of this year, we had to move him into an assisted living situation.
How is he doing?
He's doing really well. He did not talk to me for about 12 hours after the move because he was upset with me. And then he decided he liked it there and let it go. So it worked out beautifully.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. And on the business side, I've been looking at and evaluating where my business is going and how I'm here to serve, because that's always an evolving path. I know a lot of us sit and think, well, there should be one grand vision. And I'm chugging in a straight line towards that. And that's not really how the spiritual path goes. It's like the most winding path you can possibly choose through life, but it's also the most magical path. And I've been guided to kind of swing more back into the center and to have a more mundane door that people enter my world through. And
what does that mean, mundane door?
A mundane door. When you're in business for yourself, which many of us spiritual types are, yes, because there are very vanishingly few job postings that say energy healer wanted, right?
Yeah, metaphysician, sign up here.
Sign up here, exactly. And so your brand, which is what they call it in the corporate world, or your image, the thing that you put out there to attract your tribe is what I'm calling my door. And people go looking for solutions to things that are bothering them.
Yes.
And most people look for, how do I fix this problem? Okay. And that tends to be a very mundane, real world kind of problem. Now, the answer to that can come in a number of different packages, right? Because we have mental issues, we have spiritual issues, we have physical issues, we have health issues. The
We have
root of this
emotional
problem
issues. Yeah.
can come, from a number of different levels. And so people aren't looking for your solution. We're having a little business minute here. They're not looking for your solution. They're looking for an answer to their problem. And so that's the mundane side of my door. And I've had trouble putting my finger on it until recently.
Well, let me ask you a question. They want the answer, but they don't want the help, is what I'm hearing. Is that what you said?
No, what I'm
I want to
saying
clarify that.
is, what I'm saying is a lot of us, when we're putting our stuff out into the world,
Yes.
we put out, hey, come get Reiki sessions. Hey, I can give you a past life reading. Hey, I can, whatever our thing is, our particular preferred set of tools, right? People aren't generally looking for, I want a Reiki session. They are looking for,
A solution.
I am so exhausted. Okay. And I've been to the doctor and all my tests are normal and I can't figure out what's going on. Okay. They're looking for the answer to that problem, which might well be a Reiki session because they've got an energy drain happening and it needs to be plugged and they need to be rebalanced. And we forget that as self-employed people, that they're looking for a solution to their particular problem, which you can probably provide them, but they don't know that.
Right.
And so on the outside of your door needs to be, I solve problems with energy that your doctor hasn't been able to figure out, right? That's what
Great way
they're
of putting
looking
it.
for. Yeah.
I love that. And so, what's the solution that you've come up with to help people?
Well, what I have noticed, and a passion of mine, right, because it's a combination of passion and what you provide, is I've always been really passionate about people being treated as people fairly, equally, etc. And really passionate about empowering people to really excel in ways that support them, not just monetarily, but emotionally and all the things. And so I've been drawn to this topic of glass ceiling. And this is the problem is I'm not making progress at work. I'm getting paid, 20% less than my male colleague. These kinds of problems can be solved at many levels. And so glass ceiling has kind of become my rallying point. We go and break that sucker. Because it's not something that's simply imposed on you from the outside. There is, yes, that absolutely exists. I'm not here to gaslight anyone. That absolutely exists. But the thing that you have power, direct power and control over is the fact that all of that patriarchy system stuff that creates that glass ceiling is sitting in your subconscious mind in some permutation, right? Because we all learn these lessons when we're very, very, very young, and we don't have a way to, what do I want to say? Be discerning about the information that we're learning and taking into our little sponge subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is like gravity. It will always win. It is a relentless foe. And so I've become passionate about helping people with the part that they can control, which is the ways in which you are participating in holding up that glass ceiling so that you can now start to bust your own.
I love that. And so I've got a couple of thoughts on this. But did you break your own glass ceiling? And was there only one glass ceiling? Because I believe that glass ceilings can come back again and again. And there's different phases in our life that we need to break through it again and again and again. But there are different issues that you have to break through each rebuilding of a glass ceiling. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. That's not how I think of it in my mind.
Okay.
But it's probably what the lived experience of it is, right? Because you think that you've gotten past the need to have permission to do something. This is a very common thing that women have in their subconscious. We need to ask somebody if it's okay if we fill in the blank, right?
Right.
You might bust through that, and it's going to take you a level higher, but there are usually several things holding these ceilings in place. It's not just this need for permission. It's also the need to match 100% of what is on the job description to be able to go apply for it. Men only need to be 50 or 60% qualified in their minds before they apply for that job. This is part of the reason for the differential between how fast men progress through an organization or a career path as opposed to women, because we think we have to be 100% ready.
Okay.
And that's not the truth of the matter.
That's
You
really
grow
interesting.
into your next step on the career path by taking that next step.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it, about men feeling, if they're 60% in or they get it 60%, they'll go for it. They'll go for that brass ring because they're above that 50% mark. But they're women because of and this is how women have been conditioned.
It's how we were raised. You learned this at your mama's knee, not
Yeah.
deliberately, but through the actions and the modeling around you.
Well, and it's also what you see around you.
Yeah.
Women having, getting paid less for the same job and not being able to progress as much. And I'm talking about business wise, but I think it helps the same way to look at it personally as well, because of how we've been socialized, how we've been
Yeah.
educated, and what we've witnessed women to woman, generation
And
to generation.
exactly. And it creeps even into the entrepreneurial realm where technically you don't have that glass ceiling anymore. There's no one whose permission you need to go out and promote an offer. There is no one who sets your salary. You make the choices that gain those results, right? But this need to ask for permission can still hold you back because you need permission perhaps from the client to actually offer them the next step on the path, for example. This is one way that it can get in the way of your selling process. We've been taught as women, it's not nice to just tell people what to do, you're bossy, and you get labeled all these ways, right?
Yes.
Um, but you have to tell people what your next step is. They're not going to guess it. And it's very unusual for a potential client to go, okay, so what's next? How do I do this?
Right.
Don't get me wrong, it does happen, but it's not the most common experience. Most often, after you've had the sales conversation, you need to introduce and the next step is this. This is the next decision.
Right.
And if you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
So how does this transfer to personal glass ceilings?
Personal glass ceilings. As I
In the way of
mentioned
thinking about it, so how we
yeah,
could get through it.
we can get through it. One of the interesting things is now that you have this awareness that there may perhaps be a personal glass ceiling working for you, you need to start looking at your life to see kind of where the edges of that ceiling are and which ones you wish to move, right? Because containment is not always a bad thing, uh, but there also needs to be a direction for growth. And so, what I suggest looking at is where are the places where you're feeling upset, limited, frustrated by what's going on in your life and your experience? Because that will start to give you the clues and the breadcrumbs as to what might perhaps be going on that you're going to want to look at.
So would you say that looking at limiting beliefs would be the first thing to look at to see if that's what's holding up the walls?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're digging for is the limiting belief. Okay. And one of the interesting things, I've started doing some co-thinking with a coach friend of mine. And we're both INTJ, if you know that
Yeah,
classification. Yeah, and
Myers-Briggs. Yeah.
yeah, Myers-Briggs. And so we're these introverted, intuitive, thinking, judgmental types, okay, which make really great engineers. Now he's squarely in the center of that. I have kind of this thinking, feeling balance that goes on and a judgment perception thing that I'm on the edge of those two. So I'm not a center of the road INTJ, but I have dominantly those characteristics. And so I've been co-thinking with him, which has been useful for me to understand how someone with those predispositions starts to break these walls and have these sales conversations. And I've been talking to him about the glass ceiling. Now, he, to give some context, was raised in a family of women. He's got 3 sisters and was raised by a single mother, so no male role models. He's very sensitive to women's issues, which is, I think, part of the reason that I have that easy connection with him. He's kind of aware that the lived experience of being female is different than the lived experience of being male.
Yes.
And so we were having these conversations, and at our second meeting, he came back and said, I was doing some research into jobs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, which is historically underrepresented female populations.
But it's getting stronger now.
Getting stronger. When I went into science and technology, which is the 2 major career paths I had before my awakening, I literally was the only woman in the room a lot of the time. I did have a couple of, what I want to say, female role models in the course that I was going through. I had a major advisor for a while who was female. So there was a little something there. It wasn't completely void of example. And it's starting to get better, but it's still not even close to a 50-50 balance. And so he was looking at STEM jobs, and he came back and he's like, oh my God, I have more psychological predisposition towards guys than I realized. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I was looking through, different tech job listings and this, and I could hear my subconscious mind going, oh, that's a man's job. Oh, that's a man's job. Oh, that's a man's job. And he's like, I thought I had a lot less of that than most people because of my upbringing, and it's still there.
That's so interesting. But it makes a lot of sense because he's a male. Now it would be interesting to see if a woman did the same thing he did, if they would say that's a man's job, or no, we could do this.
They did a study. They did a study. Okay. There have been a couple, and you'll have to forgive me. The names on these people escape me, but if you contact me, I can look it up and give you the citation for this. Couple of psychologists, East Coast, I forget Yale, Harvard, who it was, got together and they said, let's test this subconscious bias thing. And they wrote a CV for an entry-level lab manager. And they put all the same qualifications on it, all the same education, all the same work experience, all that equal. The only thing they changed at the top of this application and the cover letter was the name of the person applying. And they had John and they had Jennifer. And they gave this to an equal number of hiring managers in the field, half male, half female, and said, rank these candidates, okay? And what they found was there was no significant difference between how women reacted to the male or the female applicant than the man's reaction to the male or the female applicant. And they universally felt that John was more qualified and that Jennifer was more likable.
Oh, interesting.
And they were asked to choose who to award the job to and all that kind of thing. They gave John substantially more money every time. He was hired about 60% of the time more than Jennifer was.
That's something.
Yeah, exactly. And it what I want to say, it gives support to the women out there who have felt like, you know what, I'm not putting my name on my CV. It's going to be Dr. J.D. Everton. Right?
Yeah.
Because it levels the playing field. They don't know if you're male or female from that.
I agree. So let's talk about breaking it. What are the misconceptions about breaking it? And I'm talking about on the personal level more than the professional.
Well, and it kind of doesn't matter if it's on the personal or the professional. I will give a lot of professional examples because that's what I've worked with the most.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter is, oh, ask the question again. my thought just spun out.
About misconceptions about
Misconceptions. The misconception is what's holding you back is something outside of you. Okay. That's 100% of the problem. Okay. It's not 100% of the problem, it's half of the problem. The other half of the problem, good news, bad news, belongs to you. Okay. You're not going to be able to do a ton about the people outside of you. You can do a ton about your personal situation, your personal thinking, your personal subconscious, and the environment you create around yourself that you can control. Okay. We all have spheres of control. And if you think about, and I'm going to go back to corporate because this is easy, they have a nice hierarchical structure 9 times out of
they
10.
do.
If you're, a frontline worker in customer service or manufacturing or whatever it is, your influence over your environment's pretty small.
Yes.
You can influence kind of your immediate workspace, perhaps, or the people you hang out with at lunch, and that's kind of the extent of it. As you move up the ladder, right, maybe you're heading up a small team. You have the ability to create an environment for that small team that can cause them to thrive. Okay, you've got a little bit more than your own personal workspace. You now have maybe control over meetings and agendas and some certain processes, right? And so you now have a sphere of influence where you can start to change the environment for other people and help them to start dismantling things. But it always starts with you and your mindset and where you're going. And it's the same thing on the personal side, right? You may be one of these people who's outgoing, who knows a lot of people, who's doing all the things. You have a larger sphere of influence over which you can cast your influence, model your changes, your shifts, that sort of thing. Even in the family, we have areas in which we have more influence and less influence. If you look at a typical household where you've got 2 partners living together, there would typically be a division of duties, right? This person's good at finance, they're going to do that. This person's really great at organizing schedules, they're going to handle that. This person's good at doing the dishes, this person doesn't mind doing the laundry. And we've got these spheres of influence. The one who has the deciding vote over, things that the kids have asked for, whatever it is. Right. And so now my train went away. Oh, okay. So the myth is that there's an outside force that will prevent you from doing anything. The thing is to act on what you control. This is kind of back to a 12-step thing. Identify what you can control and influence, act on that, and then just leave the rest of it to God, the universe, whomever, to resolve.
But, okay. I understand that.
Yeah.
But, I guess I want to go back because of the context of the show on how people can personally start their personal misconceptions about breaking their personal black glass ceiling. Because a lot of their limiting belief systems, this is how I'm processing, you hold them back. They imprint themselves with vows, promises, things that hold you stuck.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to, for the listeners, try to talk about how people can break through their stuckness, some strategies, some thoughts about that.
Here's your starting point on this. Okay. You can't change what you're not aware of and what you don't notice.
Yes.
And so we talked about...
you don't take responsibility for it. That's
responsibility. I would say that in 2 words, right? Because there's a lot of baggage that goes with the combined responsibility. A lot of myths and stuff about, well, it's my fault or I brought it on myself or blah, 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 blah. Throw that garbage out. Responsibility is your ability to make a difference in response to what's happening.
Yes, okay. I like that. Yes.
So we talked about being aware of the places where your life is pinching right now. There's frustration or whatever it is. The
Yes.
other thing to notice is your thinking around that situation. So what I like to do, similar to what happened with my coach friend, is to think about what is that experience like for someone who doesn't have that frustration? And then look at the judgments that come up around that person's example, because those judgments contain the limiting beliefs that are sitting in your subconscious mind.
So are you saying that when you look at somebody else and say, "Oh my God, they're much more, they're much smarter than I am. They're more successful than I am. They have more ability than I do." Are those what you're talking about in terms of looking at somebody else and forming
I'm
the
I'm
beliefs?
I'm actually talking about the thought that comes after that. Okay. Um, she's so much smarter than I am. It must be nice, blah, 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 to fill in whatever that green eyed monster qualifier is. Okay. It must be nice to have had all the educational advantages and to have that advanced degree. Well, there's a whole bunch of limiting belief that goes in that you can't advance without a degree. The degrees make you smart. Um, so there's a bunch of stuff you can unpack around that because many smart people are not advanced degree educated and do
Yes.
a tremendous job of living their life, having success, impacting other people's lives positively. And so, what I'm suggesting that you do is when the green eyed monster comes up, when the judgment comes out, I want you to take a look at yourself and look at what that judgment is telling you about your belief system. Like my friend who was looking at the jobs and going, that's a guy's job, that's a guy's job, that's a guy's job. Oh my goodness, that's a limiting belief that I have in there.
And so what do you do when you realize that you have a limiting belief around something?
Mhm.
What are, let's say, the first steps um, to acknowledging it? That's an easy one once you realize it. But
Yep.
then what do you do about it once you realize it?
If you're looking to change it, what I would encourage you to do is think about what are alternative beliefs that can go in that space that are equally valid. A lot of us take this subconscious stuff and go, well, that's just the way life is.
Mm-hmm.
Men are always going to win or whatever it is.
Right.
And so I want you to flip it on its head and look at what would the reverse of that be first. What would my life look like, feel like? What behaviors might I be taking if I were to turn that on its head and say, women succeed amazingly every day, and I'm one of them?
So affirmations.
So, affirmations are a great place to start, but that's not where I would stop because this is a subconscious belief.
Mm-hmm.
And they've looked at trying to change a subconscious belief through like talk therapy, affirmations, this sort of thing. And it takes thousands of repetitions and hundreds of sessions with counselors, like 600, to make like a 30 or 40% dent in that. So while it's a path and a viable path, it's a tough path and the effectiveness is low and slow. The faster thing is to go talk to your subconscious directly. And the way you can talk to and mold your subconscious directly is by going into what they call a theta state. This is what's achieved in hypnosis and meditation.
And theta
So,
healing.
and theta healing,
Yes.
absolutely, which we are both practitioners of, as I recall.
Well, I know that I've learned a little bit of it. Yes.
So, what I would suggest is,
So let's stop. Let's back up.
yeah,
How do you get into a theta state?
how do you get into a theta
And
state?
then we'll go to the next part.
If you have ever meditated, if you have ever gone through a hypnotic induction, you have been in a theta state. If you have ever fallen asleep, you have been in a theta state. If you have ever been driving down the road and couldn't tell anyone afterwards how you got there, you were just on autopilot, you were in a theta state.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's a very natural state. It's an easily invoked state. Even if you're one of these people who's like, oh, I can't be hypnotized or I can't meditate because I can't sit still. I have to move, 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 move. You can do a moving meditation.
Yes.
And that will get you there as well. You can meditate standing up on your feet and rocking back and forth. It will gradually put you into a theta state.
Just don't be a weeble and wobble and possibly fall over.
Exactly. Just be aware of your stability limits, right? So those are a number of ways that you end up in theta states just naturally. And so if you want to talk to your subconscious mind directly, you need to be in the theta state, because in the theta state, your conscious mind takes a seat off to the side and allows you to directly interact with your subconscious and rewire things. Now, the thing to know about interacting with your subconscious is it does not speak in words, which is why affirmations are pretty slow. It speaks in images and feelings. And so when you're working with this limiting belief, your subconscious mind will personify it for you in some way. It will literally become a character or a shape, something concrete and identifiable and symbolic of whatever this is. And so you want to talk to that limiting belief and ask it, why are you here? Why were you created? What purpose are you serving for me? Get curious about this thing. I know a lot of times with a limiting belief, we want to be hostile and obliterate that sucker because it's made our lives painful. This is the moment to step into curiosity and a little compassion, because your subconscious mind is a very faithful servant and it will carry out whatever it's been programmed to do. The problem is yours probably hasn't been deliberately programmed yet, which means there's a lot of gunk hanging around in there that will need to be cleared out. So take it one at a time. Talk to that limiting part of yourself, that limiting belief. Find out why it's here, what purpose it's serving. And then you let it know that, hey, I know you went into this with a good and open heart and you're looking to protect and serve me, but you're not in the following ways, and make a little list of the ways in which this is not serving you. And then ask it if it would support you in a new direction. And this is where your affirmation comes in.
Okay.
And so you give it the affirmation and you visualize and you feel what it's like to move into this new way of being. And you ask it what it needs to be able to support you in that new way of being, and you give it to him. The beautiful thing about an interaction with the subconscious mind is anything you can imagine, you can give to it.
That's true. So let me ask you this question about receiving the response, the answer.
Yeah.
So I know, and I talk about this in my announcements and whatever, that, to ask for what you need, ask, to give you guidance or show you or give you information, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But the other part of that, because, spirits on the other side, they don't have free will. Now, I don't know if you consider your subconscious to be partially, spiritual in that respect, but I know that things don't normally come very lineal fashion to you. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. What direction do I go in? You don't necessarily hear like turn left. You might, but you don't necessarily do it. But yet,
more often than not, it's something else. Yes.
Right. You have to be open and aware and mindful of what's going on around you, so you don't miss the clues, because sometimes they're really subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like what happened to me, they'll kick you in the ass and knock you down and have you fracture something.
Yes, to get you to sit down and listen. That's a soul trick. It's like, you need to stop this shit you're doing, sit down and pay attention for a little while. Think about what you've been doing.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's one of the reasons actually that I recommend working with a well-trained hypnotherapist, because you build up a skill of talking to your subconscious mind. And what the hypnotherapist is there to do, a well trained one, is to help you have that conversation in a productive way with your subconscious mind. And it's a skill you can learn by going through the process with them. So think of the hypnotherapist as perhaps training wheels. And a lot of people will go, "Oh, they're so expensive," and that'd be a lot of sessions. This is not like going to a regular therapist where you need like
Right.
600 sessions to get a 30-40% improvement. They did a study comparing that to six single digit 6 sessions of hypnotherapy, and they saw a 92% improvement in the problem they were looking to fix.
That's a huge ROI of your efforts. It
Absolutely.
truly is.
It truly is, and so when you look at what it would cost for 6 sessions of hypnotherapy with a really good hypnotherapist, you're looking at probably under $5,000, which seems like a chunk, right? 5 grand, oh my gosh. But if you think about how much the copay is on 600 visits to a
Sessions.
therapist is and how many years it would take to get there, totally, totally worth the investment.
So true. It is. So let's talk about some fears and obstacles that people encounter when trying to break through their own personal glass ceiling, because I think this brings an enlightenment of, if you feel that you have these fears or these obstacles running in your life, that you should consider, doing something to remove them. Because once you remove
Absolutely.
those obstacles and fears, it's a different road, it's a different path.
It's a very different path. And one of the biggest, what do I want to say, fears or limiters that I see come up for clients is this, well, my life might change. I'm kind of comfortable with what I have, right?
Yeah.
Someone might choose to leave if I'm more assertive. What does that mean for me long term? And what I have seen with clients, what I find in my personal life is yes, there may be some people who leave. Okay. This is a moment for courage. Okay. Because you can't receive what you're asking for when your hands are full. You've got to allow what wants to leave and know that you will be okay. Now, it's easy to say and a little harder to connect with. So I like to help people gather some evidence around that. Okay. If you've been on this earth for any period of time, you've been through some shit.
Hmm.
Okay. Whether it's illness or separations or bad relationships, what it is, you will have been through some shit. And some of it was probably pretty scary. Things like homelessness, extremely scary.
Yes.
Okay. But guess what? You are still here today and you made it through all those things. And I encourage you to make a list of all those things that you've gone over, through and around, the illnesses, the breakups, the deaths, the moving, the career changes, the job losses, all the things. And then celebrate yourself because you made it through all that. And remember that the universe is, in fact, looking out for you, because next to that list in the other column, for the things that are in the rearview mirror, there's always something big that came out of that you wouldn't have gotten any other way. And so I would encourage you to put a line down the middle of that page, and then the other column, list the beautiful things that happened because you went through that.
And also know that sometimes people just can't deal with the bright light you're shining, and they can't deal with the energy, you raising your vibration. The vibration's too much for them, and that's okay because they have their own path.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things I think we as humans are inclined to do, I know I have this inclination, is to think this person that I really like and love and adore will be in my life always. And that relationship will always be full of love and like and adore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how it is. Some relationships are intended to be short. Some are intended to have a whole bunch of love and like and adore. Some have a lot of, yeah, you're okay. And some really suck. Okay.
It's true.
And some of them start one way and end the other, you know. Um, but everyone is here for a season and a reason.
Or a
And
lifetime.
or a lifetime. You
Or a
never know.
lifetime.
Sometimes you get life companions that are around your entire life or decades
Yeah.
of your life, you know.
Or,
And you need to just allow whatever that time interval is to be okay.
yes. I like what Bashar says. So I don't know if you know about Bashar, but I love Bashar. And so this became a mantra of mine and was so helpful. And what he says is a relationship till it's not a relationship anymore. And that was just like, oh my God, and
Yes.
I
And
didn't take it personally.
it takes two to have a relationship. Okay.
Yes.
The instant one of the people checks out of that relationship, it's no longer a relationship and now it's a stalking situation.
Could be.
So it's important when somebody decides, you know what, I'm done with this relationship, to say, thank you for what you have brought me to this point. Have an amazing life. And just
Yeah.
let them go.
God bless, go with God, live your best life.
Absolutely.
And
Now,
let him
you
get
may
on with
have
it.
some feelings around that. You don't have to share those with that person. You can share those in other safe spaces. And
Yes.
it'll save you a lot of ugly, bad breakups.
I so agree with you. We need to take a pause right now because it's charity shout out time. And as you
Oh,
know, we talk charity. And so your charity of choice is Kiva.org. So
yes.
let's talk about Kiva.org, what they do and how they help.
I love Kiva.org because it empowers people who don't have all the privileges and advantages oftentimes that we have in the developing first world, to take control of their ship, to be the master of their destiny, and to start these businesses that support their families in better ways. It's, you know, helping a farmer get a down payment on a plot of land where he can grow some vegetables, or purchase the first seeds that he needs to be able to start that process of sowing, reaping, selling, sowing, reaping, selling,
Right.
to improve the life of his family or her family. And that's kind of my preference. The men have so many advantages. My preference tends to be to support the female-owned businesses, especially the single mothers who are,
Yes.
you know, I'm starting this sewing business in the back of my house, and I need some fabric to be able to make the things that I'm going to be selling. I love funding those types of loans. And the beautiful thing is, I don't have to come up with $1,000 or whatever it is that she needs to get this starting material. All I need to come up with is $25. And another, let's see, 25 times 4 into 1,000. Another 40 people will give a $25 loan and they'll be funded. So my risk of loss is very low. These are loans that get paid back. When the money comes back, I can lend it again, or I can choose to take it off the table. And it gives me a way to really empower women worldwide, which is my mission doing it. You can choose to empower immigrants or refugees, or whatever you choose to empower. There are a number of different ways you can search, to get that jump that they need to get going, to become self-sustaining.
I love that. I know I looked into that. I've donated to it, and it's a great organization. And thank you for bringing it to our attention because, there are so many insecurities out there for animals and elders, and then of course there's the health and like St. Jude and cancer, lung, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. Um, and this is a different way to be of service to help people to self-sustain.
Yeah, and it fits in with my philosophy that I have in my life, in my personal life, in my business life, and in my charitable life. Is I I'm going to teach you to fish.
I
I
love
don't
that.
want you to be dependent on me. I'm going to give you the tools you need to be able to go out there and do what you need to do for yourself. And so part of that's probably one of the largest reasons that I love Kiva.org. It's not a handout, it's a hand up.
I love that. I love the way you said that. Hand up. That's great. Thank you so much. So let me ask, what resources, books, tools do you um, suggest for individuals to utilize to aid them in their personal growth journey?
If you are hitting a glass ceiling someplace in your life and you're having trouble kind of being able to step out of yourself to observe yourself and see it, what I suggest is getting a book on the topic. This is what it takes to balance your work and your life better. This is what it takes to whatever. And as you're going through that book, have a pen and paper next to you and observe your thoughts as you're going through this book. The, oh my God, that would never work for me because kind of thoughts. Write all those down. And now you're going to have that list of limiting beliefs you can start to work with.
Oh, brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Truly a brilliant idea.
We're
Great.
fishing. We're fishing now.
We're catching the big fish.
Absolutely. And when you look at that list, after you've gone through your book and you're looking at that list, the one that will make the most difference for you is the one that you go, oh my God, I could never do that. That's your
Yes.
big change maker right there. The other ones that are like, I could probably see my way to figuring out how to make this work. Those are the small fish. You want the big, hairy, scary, audacious one.
I love that. That's hysterical. Big, hairy, audacious. So, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck and unable to break through their personal glass ceiling?
It's a good moment for help. Okay, there are no bonus points for doing it by yourself. In fact, all it does is it makes you suffer longer as you're thrashing around trying to figure it out. Now, don't get me wrong, there's value to thrashing around and trying to figure it out. You learn things, you grow in different ways, you grow stronger through that process. But at some point, you get to the point it's like, okay, I'm over this, it needs to be done. And professional help is a great thing to enlist at that time. And the good news is because you've been trying to figure it out and do the healing on your own, you've probably done 80% of the work already. And all you need is a little boost, a hand up, if you will,
Yeah.
to get through to that next level.
And knowing, I think knowing what might come up for you to work on is, it's like, as we talked about earlier in the show, if you AA or shoppers, shopping addictions or any addictions, until you acknowledge you have something as
You
like an
can't do
addiction, you can't.
anything about it.
You can't. So you
Yeah,
need, so acknowledging what it might be, the limiting belief or the issue, will be your first step in going
always.
down the path to breaking through that glass ceiling or glass
Yeah,
wall, whatever you want to call it.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's always, always, always the first step. And it's such a powerful step. A lot of times all you need is the realization when we talked about making that list of things that came up. Some of them will be cleared just by you having the realization that, oh my God, I have this limitation that's sitting there and that wall will drop. Others of them, you will need to interact with your subconscious mind and do some serious reworking and rethinking of the way that you're approaching the world.
That's true. And there's so many metaphysicians like Zofia out there who are so powerful in what they can do to help you with this breaking the glass ceiling. I think because you're the hypnotherapist as well, and I don't know if that would go into a metaphysical, list of techniques, but the
It,
point is it's powerful and it can be helpful.
it's like me, it has a foot in both worlds.
I like that. That's so funny. It's so true. So, Zofia, have I not what have I not brought up that oh, I know what we didn't talk about. Wait. Your
Yes.
book of wait,
I
your
don't
book,
have a
Zofia
book
Coffee Chat. You have a coffee chat.
yet, but
That's
you
what it
can
is.
book a coffee chat with me. Yes, absolutely. I do offer for the moment a free 20-minute consultation around whatever your topic is. It is a no strings attached conversation. It is not, what do I want to say, one of these greased slides into a sales presentation that many of these things are.
Yes.
You will get my analysis of the problem that's frustrating you and what your best paths are to solve it. One of those paths obviously will be working with me, but you will have a plan that you can go home and execute on your own if that is what works best for you at this moment in time.
That's such a beautiful gift to people, because again, there's no strings attached. You could work with you if you want to, or you could take some of the suggestions and try doing it on your own, but knowing that the door will be open. So if you
Absolutely.
feel that Zofia will be the one to help you, and let me tell you something, this woman is stinking powerful.
Thank you. Well, the session is intended to be a mirror, right? A lot of the times we're in our little bottle, there's a label on the bottle, and we can't freaking see it to understand what's going on with us. And so if you hold up a mirror, you can at least read that label backwards.
Which is a talent unto itself.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes that's the thing you need, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, and what's unconscious to you is glaringly apparent to someone looking in at you. So, 20 minutes of someone looking in at you and going, here's the pattern I see, can make all the difference.
It's true, unless they're not willing, again, to
Again,
acknowledge and
back
own.
to acknowledging what's going on and accepting responsibility to do something about it.
Yeah, you have to own it. You have to
Yeah.
own your stuff, because nobody
It
else
can
will.
it can be hard to own your stuff,
It is.
because, you're taught that a lot of times your stuff is shameful from a very early age.
Yes.
And that having stuff means that you're not as valuable or whatever, right? It's the foundation of much of the lack of self-worth that goes on.
It's true.
But the truth of the matter is, you are amazing and valuable exactly the way you are. And the fact that you've got stuff, that you've got a pile of been there, done that t-shirts, does not take away in any way from the fact that you are an amazing, wonderful being that is here to do profound, wonderful things in this world.
Yeah. We all have, like our fingerprints, we all have special talents, gifts, and abilities. And
Yeah.
it's learning to see what they are so that you can utilize them and not be afraid of them, because fear will hold you back, but there's no reason to fear something that hasn't happened. Go through
Can
that veil of fear.
can I pitch something else really quick?
Yes, you can.
You mentioned we all have this wonderful array of gifts and talents and abilities. But
Yes.
again, if you haven't had somebody be a mirror for you, a lot of times you're taking those for granted. This is just the way everyone is. And so I created a quiz that will be that mirror for you. And so if you would like to take a peek in the mirror, but you're a little too whatever to talk to me, too busy, too shy, to whatever the thing is, you can go to superpowerquiz.us and get a little peek in that mirror for the uniqueness that you are.
And we're all beautiful. We just have to not look at anybody else, to acknowledge our beauty and acknowledge it for ourselves, our kindness, our empathy, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and it's when you compare yourself to somebody else, it's never an apples to apples comparison, because you're comparing your inside with their outside. And I
Yes.
promise you, their outside looks nothing like their inside.
It's funny. It reminds me of a little thing that I heard. So it was a friend of mine who was friends with another friend who worked in Hollywood in the industry. And without going into detail or anything like that, but my friend is like very like, ooh, stars, celebrities, and all that, thinking, wow, how wonderful. And this person, exactly, all the glitter, all the whatever. But then her friend said to her, if you met them in person, you'd be very disappointed, because what they're presenting, who they're presenting they are on the outside, is not necessarily the real person and how they present themselves when they're living their day-to-day life.
Yes.
And that's what that reminded me of.
So it's an important thing to remember when you're scrolling Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, they're only showing you one little facet of a multifaceted, stone. Yeah.
And carefully curated 98% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not real life. It's imagination and illusion.
Yeah.
which most of life is.
Well, and it's branding, right? I mean, you've got to have some branding or you're
But
not
what is
going anywhere.
branding? But that's a whole nother topic. We could go into branding because
Oh
branding
my gosh.
is creating. It's creating who you want to be, who you want to present yourself to, and all your materials correlate with that to support
Yeah.
it.
Well, and here's the thing. A lot of people look at branding and go, "Well, I'd have to create this persona that's not me." No. You just take you and you go, "Okay, this is the part that really applies to the people who want to work with me."
Yeah, it
So
is. You
it's not
find your
about
avatar.
being different, it's about where you focus people's attention.
It's like the pinball game where your ball settles in.
Yeah.
It's it's that moment. And Zofia, our time is up. Thank you so much. This
Thank you,
has been
Marla.
such a fun
It
conversation.
has. It's always a pleasure.
Always, always. And so I thank you so much for all you've offered, all you share. So please check out Zofia. Her information is on our blog, so you can find out her website, where to find her podcast, and where you can set up for your coffee chat with her. So please don't forget to check that out. Also,
Or take your superpower quiz.
oh, take your superpower quiz. I like that so much. That was brilliant. And I want to thank Bridget for all you do, for your support, for your help, for your technical knowledge and know-how. You are my right hand and left hand. And I have to stop thanking Bridget a second. She popped something up. Superpowerquiz.us. If you want to take the superpower quiz, superpowerquiz.us, which I think I might do just for fun, so I could see
Yeah.
what the quiz is like. It's so exciting. But Bridget, thank you for all you do. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for taking time out of your day, out of your life to be a part of the show, because this show is done with your higher and best good in mind, for you to receive information, guidance from some of the most incredible metaphysicians and healers and spiritual thought leaders from across the globe. Zofia, coming from
Sunny Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona. Oh my God, I was there, and for whatever reason, New Mexico popped in my mind. So I apologize for that. Maybe you're going to be moving there. I have no idea.
It just occurred to me. It's like, who knows? Maybe it's the next move. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be one of those spiritual slips. But I want to thank you for taking the time. Really, I'm so grateful for you. And I hope that you get out of this what we're trying to give you through these conversations. I would love it if you would like the podcast, subscribe to it, and please review it. I would love to hear your thoughts about not just this podcast, but any podcast you take your time to listen to, and see how we can tweak it to better it for what you desire. If you have somebody in mind that you'd like to see on the show or a topic you'd like to see covered, please email me at guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com or marla@mghealer.com. Also, next week, we have Leon Levstick. He's a master of holistic healing, spiritual teacher, and innovator, inventor. He specializes in healing illnesses, difficult illnesses, and injuries. So tune in next week when we speak to Leon Levstick. Also, as I send you on your way for the week, as always, I have one arm to do this. This is a prayer hand. I'm sending you love, light, and blessings. Thank you, Zofia. I'm sending you love, light, and blessings. I am so grateful that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it, because not only are you my student, you are my teacher. Not only am I a teacher, I am a student. And so I learn from you as much as you learn from me. And I say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, I'm going to say those 3 words. I'm sending it out to you. No, I'm changing my mind. I'm sending out a cloud filled with love confetti. And I wish that it pops all over you, imprinting all this love in your heart, in your life. So I will see you next week, and stay well, and don't do what I do and fall and fracture something. So stay safe, healthy, and joyful. Take care. Bye now.